With more than half the games postponed last weekend, we're just praying that the same doesn't happen on Sunday. Yes, welcome along to this week's Women's Football Chat, your weekly show dedicated to the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That is the FAWNL. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m. to bring you the very latest from the 6 divisions that make up the FAWNL, as well as the Cup, the Plate and the FA Cup. Of the 32 games that were supposed to be played in the league over the course of last Sunday, 16 and a half, 17 of them were postponed or abandoned before they reached their conclusion. As a result, they'll see this show is going to be a bit shorter than normal, but we will still, as always, go through all of the results and the fixtures coming up, because we have got some super fixtures coming up on Sunday as the big money comes into play in the third round of the FA Cup. We're going to start, though, as we always do, with the Northern Premier Division. Just 2 games surviving the weather this weekend. Newcastle and against West Brom, and Stoke against Nottingham Forest. So Newcastle, only a 1-0 victory at home to West Brom, and only in the 85th minute Rebecca Ferguson getting the only goal of the game for Newcastle. Not convincing for them at all, but 3 points nonetheless. And at the Bet365 Stadium, Stoke City losing by 5-1 at home to Nottingham Forest. Forest taking the lead very early on. Luann Worsley in just the 6th minute, but Stoke equalising from the penalty spot just 3 minutes later. That lasted for half an hour or so before Holly Manders put Forest back in front with a penalty of her own just before half time. She would then get another one with 20 minutes to go. Sophie Domingo on the hour mark had put Forest 3-1 in front before Manders got her second, and then Natalie Johnson just 8 minutes from time rounding it off to make it 5-1 to Forest. Much better than the men's side. In the table then, Newcastle go to the top of the Northern Premier Division. 2 points in front of Burnley, who of course didn't play this weekend. Forest are up to third. They are 7 points behind Newcastle, but they are only above Wolves by 2 points, with Wolves having a game in hand. But it is very much that top 4 who will be fighting it out for the title. But for the likes of Forest and Wolves, they have got to be pretty much perfect for the rest of the season. Those games between Newcastle and Burnley will be very important, I think, in deciding the title. Down towards the bottom then, West Brom losing to Newcastle, so they stay exactly where they are, and Stoke mid-table, they're losing to Forest, again stay exactly where they are in 6th place. Southern Premier Division then, unaffected by the weather this weekend. And some very, very interesting results in there as well. We'll start at the top. Billericay Town 2, Ipswich Town 2. Billericay Town so close to taking all 3 points from this one, despite Ipswich taking the lead through Bonnie Horwood in the 42nd minute. So Ipswich 1-0 up at half-time. Billericay turn it around in the second half. Soraya Walsh in the 69th minute and Ruby Seeley in the 81st minute, putting Billericay 2-1 in front. Looked for all the world as though they were going to take the 3 points away from the game with Ipswich, until Natasha Thomas in the 99th minute equalised for the visitors, and the points there are shared. Portsmouth continue their good run in the Southern Premier Division. 4-0 away winners at London Bees. Jasmine Younger in the 9th minute and Emma Jones in the 43rd minute had put Portsmouth 2-0 up by half time. But then two from the substitutes bench. Danielle Lane in the 84th minute and Ella Humphrey in the 90th minute, meaning that Portsmouth comfortably in the end 4-0 away winners at London Bees. Rugby Borough 2-1 winners against Chatham Town. Two quick-fire goals for Rugby Borough turned it around because Chatham had taken the lead in this one through Lottie Sharp in the 34th minute, but one right before half-time from Nikki Potts in the 45th plus 4th minute meant they went into the break level, and then she got her second just 3 minutes after the restart. So 2-1 it finished between Rugby and Chatham. And then probably the most surprising result of the day, Hashtag United losing at home to Cheltenham Town, whose only goal of the game came to Una Liu in the 73rd minute. Great result from Cheltenham away at Hashtag United. Wheels potentially somewhat falling off for Hashtag. They drop down now to second in the Southern Premier Division table. They are level on points with Portsmouth, but Portsmouth have a goal difference which is 30 superior to Hashtag United, and now Portsmouth have a game in hand. Hashtag United at the midway point of their season, having played 11 games. Rugby Borough leapfrog Ipswich Town after Ipswich's draw and Rugby's victory, and Cheltenham leapfrog Oxford after that victory against Hashtag United. So Portsmouth up a place, Hashtag United down one, Rugby Borough up and Ipswich down one, and then Cheltenham overtaking Oxford, who didn't play. Billericay stay where they are in 8th. They are now 6 points clear of the bottom two. Chatham and London Bees both still losing, so they are both still in the relegation zone. London Bees with just 1 point from their first 10 games. Plymouth Argyle and Cardiff City both having games in hand over those bottom two still. Right, Division 1 Midlands results then. Very much depleted set of results from Division 1 Midlands. So we'll start with Solihull Moors against Boldmere St Michael's. Now this was last Thursday night's game. Boldmere St Michael's winning that one thanks to a goal from Evie Billingsley just before half time, winning by a 1-0. And every game in Division 1 Midlands at the weekend postponed, apart from Sutton Coldfield Town against Boldmere St Michael's. Goals in that one, Jessica Wallace just 5 minutes in and Billingsley again in the 95th minute, so very much bookending the game with the goals for Boldmere St Michael's in that one. But a great week for them, 2 away games and 6 points to come from it, but that is it from Division 1 Midlands. What it means, Boldmere St Michael's up 3 places. They've jumped from 12 points to 18 points, and that is making great use of what's turned out to be pretty much games in hand. Only Sporting Cowser, who are now 2 points behind Boldmere St Michael's, have a game in hand on them. So Boldmere really should have catapulted themselves up the Division 1 Midlands table. They are now in 3rd after that 6 point week. The only other teams then involved this week, Solihull Moors dropped down to 5th after losing to Boldmere St Michael's, and Sutton Coldfield Town remain in 7th, but there is now a 6 point gap between Sutton Coldfield Town in 7th and Northampton Town in 6th. So again, as we've seen in a couple of the other leagues, this league very much starting to split between teams towards the top and teams towards the bottom of the table. Again, none of these teams in action this weekend, but your likes of Sheffield and Leaford Athletic, 4 and 3 points away from safety, but games in hand over Leek Town and Notts County. But yes, very much a case of a very depleted fixture list, meaning that not a lot happened this week. Division 1 North, just 2 games survived. Hull City with an emphatic 6-0 victory over FC United of Manchester. Helen Linsky with 2 goals in the 27th and the 81st. Rachel Ackroyd also with 2, 48th and 57th minute. Ellie Tanser in the 88th and Kirsty Hunt in the 90th meant it was very convincing in the end with a 6-0 victory. And Stockport County beating Norton Stockton Ancients by just 3 goals to 1. Interesting in this game was a post full-time whistle red card. But on the pitch, Stockport County taking the lead early through Olivia Greenhalgh in the 3rd minute. They would then double their advantage through Kenzie Bentley in the 23rd minute. 2-0 at half-time. Greenhalgh would then add another one just before the hour mark. Norton did get one back through Maddie Myers in the 69th minute, but that was the end of the scoring. This red card, incidentally, to Sophie Hodgson, who had to come off in the 20th minute and was replaced by Myers, who would be the Norton goal scorer. But then after the full time, the referee gave Hodgson a red card, so presumably something was said. I haven't seen too much about it, but you would think having to come off in the 20th minute, perhaps an injury or something, so unhappy with the challenge. But a red card after the game for Hodgson there for Norton and Stockton Ancients, so bear without her for a couple of games. What that means then for the North table is Hull City have replaced Barnsley at the top of the table, but Barnsley do have a game in hand, but Hull at the moment in that position to go into the Northern Premier Division. FC United of Manchester still at the bottom of the table after that. Stockport County, after beating Norton Stockton Ancients, leapfrog Leeds United. They are now into 4th, but again Leeds have a game in hand. And Norton, after losing by 2 goals, their goal difference now dips slightly below Doncaster Rovers Bells by a goal. So despite Doncaster not playing, they were supposed to play Barnsley, they have climbed up a place on goal difference over Norton and Stockton Ancients. Again, similar to the Midlands, we're getting this split. The 2 teams that are on 4 points in the relegation zone, and then these 3 teams on 7. Although Doncaster do have a couple of games in hand, although so to Chester Street Town. And then there is that 4-point gap to Chorley, who will have games in hand on all of those below. So over the next few weeks, Division 1 North, in particular, there is only a couple of teams from memory. Well, there are 3 teams left in the FA Cup, but they are all facing higher tier opposition this weekend. So it could well be that Division 1 North, as Division 1 South East is, will be FA Cup free by the end of the weekend. But we'll get on to the FA Cup a little bit later on. Division 1 South East then, just a couple of results because of one abandonment. So Ashford Town against Middlesex. Ashford had taken the lead in this one through Martha Riley in the 21st minute, but 2 for Grace Stanley in the final 20 minutes of the game. 73rd and 89th minute meant that Queen's Park Rangers took all 3 points in that one. 3 postponed games, including both Cambridge clubs and Chesham United. Haywards Heath Town against Actonians was abandoned at half time due to the pitch. So they managed to get the first half in, but then the game abandoned. And the big game at the top of the table, Norwich City 2, AFC Wimbledon 0. They managed to get this game on. Natasha Snelling with 2 goals for Norwich before half-time, 31st and 41st minute, meant that Norwich have closed that gap to Wimbledon at the top of the table. There is no movement at all in South East. Queen's Park Rangers remain in 3rd after their 1-goal victory over Ashford Town. They're now on 21. Ashford Town remain in 5th. Norwich City still in 2nd, but they have closed that gap to Wimbledon. It is now just 3 points, and Norwich have a game in hand. Now, Wimbledon have the better goal difference, but Norwich did themselves a world of good in that one, because if Wimbledon had come away with the win and it was a 9-point gap, it was beginning to look like a big task for Norwich City. But for Norwich to win that game, they've got a game in hand as well, as I've just mentioned, so they could level go level with Wimbledon. Yes, the goal difference, but they can make that goal difference up, because if they win, it's only going to be 8 goals. 8 goals over 11 games, definitely doable. So Norwich did exactly what they needed to do at home this weekend. Division 1 Southwest then, just one game. We were denied, the weather denied us that top of the table clash between two perfect sides in Bournemouth and Exeter. The weather got in the way. Abingdon against Moneyfields was called off the morning of the game, and Chelsea against Portishead Town also postponed. So just one game in Southwest. Swindon Town 4, Torquay United 0. Ellie Stripple with 2 goals, 1 in each half, the 9th minute and the 69th minute. Then Annabelle Colston in the 43rd and the 64th minute. So both of those players with a goal in each half. 4-0 winners, Swindon over Torquay. And that means that there is no movement in Division 1 Southwest either. Swindon remain in 3rd. I would say breathing down the necks of the top 2, but the top 2 being perfect so far are already streaking ahead, although we did see something similar with Cardiff last year, so Swindon will not be counting themselves out just yet. No game for Moneyfields or Abingdon United, both on 16. If they were to win both of those games in hand they've got over Swindon Town, then they could jump into 3rd, so don't discount either of those sides yet either. And obviously down towards the bottom, Torquay United in 10th. They're on 4 points. They are now slightly closer on goal difference to the bottom 2, but no, still with Portishead and Chelsea, that game not happening, then they are still in the bottom 2, but Portishead do have a game in hand over Torquay. Maidenhead 3 points above. Southampton Women's just a point above, although they have quite a few games in hand as well, because if you remember, they lost quite a lot of available weeks trying to play the FA Cup games. Speaking of the FA Cup games, the 2 second round games that were carried over from the week before because of the round 1 games that were carried over, and etc, etc. We've now all caught up with the FA Cup. Keynsham Town 2-1 winners over Bristol Rovers. Clipston and Larton with the goals for Keynsham Town, and Southampton Women's Southampton Women's beating Maidenhead United by 3-0. We've got one for Ball, one for Schaff in the 45th minute, one for Sivrite in the 62nd minute. So it is Southampton Women's who will go on, and as well Keynsham Town into the 3rd round of the FA Cup, and we will come on to their opponents now. 3rd round of the FA Cup. Now this is the southern half of the draw. It's still done regionalised in this round, not though when the Super League sides come in round 4. So the interesting thing with the way in which the regionalisation was done with North and South, but the line was a bit kind of all over the place to get an even number of teams. The North section has come off relatively better than the Southern section. What I mean by that is the southern half of the draw, which is what is on your screen now, had 7 of the 12 championship sides in it, and the northern section only had 5. So if you're in the north, you're more likely to avoid a championship side. What became even more apparent after the draw, they did the northern half of the draw. In fact, actually, let's have a look at the northern half of the draw first, because this helps me make my point. The northern half of the draw included sides Milton Keynes Dons and Rugby Borough, who play in the Southern Premier Division because of the geography of the Southern and the Northern Premier Division and the 24 teams that are in that league. As you can see here, Rugby Borough hosting Sheffield United and Milton Keynes Dons hosting Birmingham City. 2 of the teams playing in the Southern Premier Division drew championship sides, along with the other teams in the Southern Premier Division that drew championship sides. On my whiteboard I can see that of the 9 teams in the Southern Premier Division that are still in the FA Cup, 7 of them drew championship sides and the other 2 drew each other. So, and I'd love there to be a shock, and there might be a shock or 2 in there, but if all the championship sides win, all the championship sides avoided each other, just out of curiosity there, you could end up with just 1 Southern Premier League side in round 4, and then you look at the northern half of the draw. You've got Burnley with a tier 5 side, Derby playing lower, Newcastle and Stoke have got each other, Forest playing lower, West Brom have got a championship side, and Wolves are facing a side lower. There's only 2 championship teams playing FAWNL teams from the northern leagues, that being Durham hosting West Bromwich Albion and Sunderland hosting Durham Sestra. It is far more likely for Northern Premier League sides to progress into round 4, and then because of that, I know it's national now, but they've got more chance of drawing each other again because there's more of them in there. It is national, but what I mean by that is if the Northern Premier Division sides had also drawn more championship sides, then there could be fewer FAWNL teams. I'm not really making myself sense, I'm tripping over myself. But it looks as though we're going to have 4, maybe 5 Northern Premier Division sides and maybe only 1 Southern Premier Division side, which is going to then disrupt the Northern Premier Division more, but also bring more money to the teams in the Northern Premier Division, which is going to make it even more competitive and more difficult in following seasons. Anyway, FA Cup third round, Rugby Borough against Sheffield United, Newcastle take on Stoke, all Division 1 North, Burnley are away at 5th tier Camden Court, Derby County away at 4th tier Chester Street Town, Sunderland hosting Durham Sestra, Milton Keynes Dons are hosting Birmingham, 5th tier Darwin get 2nd tier Blackburn Rovers at home, Nottingham Forest hosting Bournemouth St Michael's, West Brom have to face 2nd tier Durham, do not get them confused with Durham Sestra, and Hull City of tier 4 are hosting Wolverhampton Wanderers. In the southern half of the draw, Crystal Palace of the Championship against Chatham Town, Southampton Women's of tier 4 hosting Watford, who of course got promoted out of the FAWNL last season, London City Lionesses against Billericay Town, Cheltenham Town against Reading, Luton Town against Keynsham Town. We're guaranteed a tier 4 side at least in the 4th round. Portsmouth against Southampton, what a tie that is. 2nd tier Southampton, of course, got promoted a couple of years ago out of the FAWNL against Portsmouth. Plymouth Argyle against Oxford United, all Southern Premier Division tie. Ipswich Town against Lewis, Moneyfields against Millwall Lionesses, another tier 4 against tier 5. We're guaranteed 2 tier 4 sides or below in the 4th round, and what a difference the money from that 4th round, even losing in the 4th round, can make to those tier 4 sides. And finally, AFC Bournemouth, obviously perfect in Division 1 South West so far, against Charlton Athletic. So 3rd round of the FA Cup is this weekend. See if anything gets postponed, it then takes priority in the run up to Christmas. Then the 4th round is in January, the 14th of January. As it stands at the moment, all of the FAWNL sides still in the FA Cup have league games scheduled for the 7th, because it could well be that they all get knocked out, or the vast majority anyway. If you take, because all the championship sides avoided each other, let's say they all get through, that leaves only 8 spots for non-Super League and Championship sides. So it could well be, well, you've got at least 8 FAWNL sides in round 4. If they are primarily in the Northern Premier Division, there might be the odds, as we can see on the screen here, Keynsham, Moneyfields beat tier 5 sides, from tier 4, but primarily, South East already doesn't have anybody in. Division 1 Midlands only has Boldmere St Michael's still in, and they've got to win away at Forest to stay in. Division 1 North only has 3 teams in. Hull have got to host third tier Wolves. Durham Sestra have got second tier Sunderland, and Chester Street Town have got third tier Derby County. So that's fourth tier sides having all got games against higher division opposition to get through. So it could be that the North goes back to normal. South East will be disrupted, you would think, because of those tier 5 games. And as well, I've already mentioned, the Southern Prem, of the 9 teams involved, 7 are facing championship sides and 2 are facing each other. So you could be that you've only got one Southern Premier Division side in round 4. It could be 1 Southern Premier Division side, 2 Division 1 South West sides, and 5 from the Northern Premier Division. Could be. So that's the FA Cup third round. Hopefully there are plenty of shocks in that. I'm not aware. I don't think I've got anything on Sunday, and my wife is out, so might just sit and provide updates on Twitter over the course of the afternoon. We'll see how things pan out for me. Right, league fixtures this weekend. There are some because of sides that have already been knocked out of the FA Cup. So we'll start in the Northern Premier Division. Just the one game. Liverpool Feds in 5th against Halifax in 9th. Halifax, of course, only played 6 games so far this season. Everyone else is up at 9 or 10 pretty much. So another game in hand for Halifax here. If they're able to get the win, they'll climb up above Stourbridge. They are 5 points clear of the relegation zone as it stands. Liverpool Feds, this is their halfway point. They will climb above Wolves with a win, but Wolves will have 3 games in hand on them after this weekend. No games at all in the south, so let's move to Division 1 Midlands, where there are 3 games taking place. Leaford Athletic against Peterborough United, Notts County against Northampton Town, and Lincoln City against Sporting Cowser. Leafield down in 11th. Tough game for them at home to second place Peterborough United. Peterborough, 3-point victory for them would take them 1 point behind Loughborough Lightning at the top of the table, but they will have played a game more. Notts County against Northampton Town. That is 10th against 6th. Notts County 3 points away from the relegation zone, but with Leaford Athletic facing Peterborough, Notts could really do with a point, or at least something, just to turn it into a 2-game gap, because at the moment with their vastly inferior goal difference, just one result not going their way would put them in the bottom 2. Lincoln City against Sporting Cowser is 8th against 4th. Sporting really need to win this to really try and keep up any kind of title fight, because they are this is a game in hand. They've got over Loughborough and Boldmere. They're 9 points away from Loughborough at the moment. If they win it, they go 6 behind, and that is make-upable. If they stay 9 behind with a loss to Lincoln, then it's looking like it's a big mountain to climb in the second half of the season. Division 1 North, 3 games to take you through this weekend. Quite a few games, actually, you'll notice, are the same as last week, because they've just been moved 1 week after the postponement because both teams were free. Doncaster Rovers Bell was in 9th against Chorley in 7th. Big game for both of those sides. Chorley have played fewer games than anybody else in the Division 1 North so far this season. Away at Doncaster, they maybe fancied pulling even further away from the bottom 2 and increasing that gap, really making it 2 teams from 5. Leeds United against Norton and Stockton Ancients, that is 5th against 10th. Again, Leeds will fancy themselves in this one. They could get up to 3rd with a victory. York City against Barnsley. Barnsley will want to go back to the top of the table with Hull not playing in the league this weekend. They go to York, who again will want to put even more distance between themselves and the bottom 2. It's a 3-point gap at the moment. If they can get anything out of the game with Barnsley, it becomes a 2-game gap, and that psychologically will be a big boost for York. Division 1 South East, just the 2 games. Ashford Town against Cheshire United and Worthing against Cambridge City. So relatively towards the bottom for a few of these then. Ashford Town 5th, facing Cheshire United, who are in 9th. Just 1 point separates Cheshire United from the bottom 2. Worthing in 6th against Cambridge City in 11th. They are only 1 point away from safety. If they could get something from their game in hand over AFC Sudbury, their goal difference is better. They would get out of the bottom 2 this weekend. Worthing at home though, and they have games in hand over those around them, could climb up 2 places with a victory if that Ashford game also goes their way. They could get up to 19 points, still would be 8 points behind Wimbledon. They would still have another game in hand on Wimbledon though. It would just be 5 points behind Norwich and level. So Worthing, they can get the 3 points from this game, have an outside shot of really pushing it in the second half of the season and heading up towards the top end of that table. And just 1 game to finish off then in Division 1 Southwest, Bridgwater United against Chelsea. That is 7th against 12th. Bridgwater with a victory would only climb up 1 place. They'd leapfrog Keynsham Town into 6th. But Chelsea, of course, bottom of the table, no win in 8, no points in 8, and a minus 65 goal difference. So Bridgwater United will definitely be looking for the 3 points from this game. And that's everything for the next week. There is a game on Thursday night for Forest against Huddersfield, but they'll cover that on next week's show. And we look back at the 3rd round of the FA Cup. We'll probably have had the draw as well for the 4th round of the Cup. And hopefully it goes a little bit faster than the one that happened a couple of weeks ago. But maybe, well, hopefully they'll have learned from the first one that they did, and it'll go a little bit smoother this time around. Those taking part in Predictor League, I have updated the fixtures for this weekend. I always wait until Wednesday because Tuesday night is the 5-day cut-off for any new fixtures to be put in for that Sunday. So I always wait until Wednesday to do them. So those have been updated for this weekend if you're taking part in the Predictor League. Of course, womensfootballchat.wordpress.com is the place to go for more articles and other bits of information from me about the FAWNL, some of my thoughts and opinions. There is a big Christmas article coming over the course, something for you to read over Christmas when we haven't got any games going on. I may or may not have a 1 week break over Christmas, we'll see. Yes, there's that, www.womensfootballchat.wordpress.com. Of course, on Twitter at Chris_Gadsby, and this show every Thursday at 6 p.m. I will be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. to bring you the very latest from that 3rd round and all of the league fixtures as well as we near the halfway point of the season. Thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat, and goodbye.